So now we have our keynote speaker. So it's an honor to again introduce Professor Laxmidhar Behera sir. He is director at IIT Mandi and Poonam and Prabhu Goel Chair Professor of Electrical Engineering at IIT Kanpur. He is also the affiliate member at TCS. He has supervised 22 PhDs to completion. That's very important. Authored 3 graduate level textbooks, 110 peer-reviewed journal articles, 208 conference papers, and 17 book chapters. That's enormous. In 26 years of research and teaching, he has contributed to the following fields of study: intelligent systems and control, vision-based robotics, warehouse automation, brain-computer interface, and drone-based pipeline infection systems. Sir has led industrial collaborations with TCS, Abu Dhabi National Oil, Renault Nissan, and BHEL. It's an honor to have you, Prabhu, here, and the dais is all yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Prem Gauranga Prabhu, and all the audience here. Many of you are my mentors, spiritual guide. So I am a very insignificant person standing in front of you. When Prem Gauranga Prabhu called me, I didn't know what I am going to speak, because this is about Purāṇic and Siddhāntic cosmology. I have no idea except reading Bhagavatam 5th canto and many other cantos related to it. However, I thought that this may be a good opportunity to be in a place we'll have, I can learn from many of the distinguished guests present here. So what I'm going to do today is, over many years, I have looked at the viewpoint of mind, body, consciousness in a very personal way. And so in that context, I would like to put a personal perspective. What is the mystery behind the sacred creation? Next. So this is a letter from Srila Prabhupada to His Holiness Bhakti Swarup Damodar Goswami. You can read it. It was received by His Holiness Bhakti Swarup Damodar Swami in Atlanta, 27, 1976. My final decision is that the universe is just like a tree with roots, root upwards, just as this is actually 15.1 verse in Bhagavad Gita. Just as a tree has branches and leaves, so the universe is also composed of planets which are fixed up in the trees, like the leaves, flowers, fruits, and etc. of the tree. The pivot is the polster, and the whole tree is rotating on this pivot. Mount Sumeru is the center trunk and is like a steep hill, like the Alps mountain, which also have a very high peaks. I have seen in Switzerland one mountain peak which was so high that it penetrated through the clouds. The tree is turning, and therefore all the branches and leaves turn with the tree. The planets have their fixed orbits, but still they are turning with the turning of the great tree. There are pathways leading from one planet to another, made of gold, copper, etc. And these are like the branches. Distances are also described in 5th canto, how far one planet is from another. Next. We can see that at night how the whole planetary system is turning around, the polster being the pivot. Each planet has its orbit fixed. The sun is moving up and down, north and south. It is not that we shall accept the theory that the sun is fixed up and the others are all going around the sun. That is not correct. Even the 7th star is rotating once around the pole star in each 24 hours. The whole universe is just like a big tree. That is a fact. I do not think that the modern astronomers have any such idea. The whole universe is like a big tree. planets which are full of living entities are one after another, one above the other. The relative position of the planet is fixed, but the whole thing is turning. The sun is going north and south. It has its own orbit below the moon. Of course, this is it's not very easy to penetrate, to experience it, to understand it, assimilate it. But how do we perceive the universe? So we need to understand the purpose of creation, why there is a creation at all. Next one. So in 11th canto in Srimad Bhagavatam, in a discourse between Narada and Vasudeva, it is said that the universe is in the self, within the self. What's the meaning of that? Because the universe is in the perceptual space of the self. What is out there, we don't understand. We understand only that which we experience. And experience is based on how qualified we are to experience things, right? So it's also important that whether we can experience things as they are. So you can see here, a king, he wants to experience his power. And in the process of experiencing his power, he tries to dominate, right? So that's how he builds his world around him. And if you look at a cow, for her, it's only the grass, the green grass. That's the world, because if she eats that, she can feed her calf. Or for that matter, you can see the ants. For them, the world is wherever there are sweet. So that's the perceptual space in which the ant is operating. So in a sense, we have these 8.4 million different species. They are going through different experiences. And that's the perceptual space. And we all, according to Vedanta, we all have gone through all these experiences. And in fact, our acharyas, they say, there is nothing to be experienced within this world. All that to be experienced has already been experienced. So next. So now, how we should go about the science. So as it is known that experiences are the only kind of things that we know exist. For me, what is important is my experience. And I conduct myself based on my experience. Which aspect of experience I want to enrich, which part of experience I want to reject, which one to accept. And this is going on. So my identity has two parts. I, the experiencer, and the other is experience. Unfortunately, as Professor Murthy was also telling, we have not given any importance to the experiencer part of my identity. We are only looking at the observed, and we have forgotten about the observer. So while we try to study the ingredient of the perceptual space, we have forgotten the perceiver or the experiencer. And that has really created a big vacuum, and particularly within science. So, if we go to Vedanta, we realize in conditioned state, the experiencer and the experience, they are not the same. But in the pure state, I experience myself. There is no distinction between me and the experiencer, and me, the experienced. That's the ultimate goal. So if you look at what I experience within the physical world, so there are 5 objects, right? When I eat, I experience the taste of the food. When I see, I experience the shape, color, location, motion. Similarly, what is exactly we experience? We don't experience the way we think. We experience only psychological aspects of sense objects, touch, form, taste, and smell, but not what sense objects are made of. So this is the something that we need to recognize what we experience. And can we now learn how to create or engineer things based on our experience rather than going to the things that is beyond our experience. So I will give some example. Let's go. So for example, in Vedanta, one of the things is that source matters. In Bhagavad Gita, 7th chapter, 2nd verse, Krishna tells Arjuna, I'll speak to you both phenomena and noumena. So there, Srila Prabhupada says, noumena is the source. Phenomena is the experience. So it is the same, source is same. For the ant, it comes as the sweet. For the cows, it comes as grass. Source is same, but it manifests in a way everybody gets their part of the experience. So source matters. So for example, if you look at our own biological evolution, it appears it's a material evolution, starts from the half the father cell, half the mother cell. And that's what we think, that I started from a single cell. And if that's true, if that is a true thing, then probably by now we should be able to create everything that is there in the nature. But we have not been able to even replicate. A simplest of that is probably a blade of grass. The reason is, I don't know the source. So there are variegated things within the nature, but what is the source, I am not knowing. But if you go to Vedanta literature, we know from Bhagavatam, 3rd canto, that it is the consciousness that gets transported into this single cell. So this conscious mind expands, and that expands from a single cell to trillions of cells. And amazingly, variegated cells. The bones are different cell, the hairs are different cell, the skin is different cell. It's completely mystical thing happening, because that is the ability of the conscious mind. Conscious mind is able to express itself. And of course, it's more deep than what we talk about, but the point here is that individual conscious mind expresses itself as a plant, an aquatic, an animal, a human, and this mystical thing is happening from the beginning of the creation. And to understand this cosmic mind, conscious mind, is something, must be an agenda within the science. Next. So, as I told you that how mind expresses, let me not go in details of this, let's go. Next. So, although the mind expresses itself, mind wants to express, right? For example, if I'm born in a very lower middle class, I may be dreaming that I should be born in a very aristocrat family. But even if mind desires, mind cannot create its own body, although mind, given an opportunity, expresses, but what kind of body will be given, that is again decided by the cosmic mind. So again, there is individual mind, there is cosmic mind, and there is material energy within. And their interplay creates the creation. And that's why in 13th chapter of Bhagavad Gita talks about these three actors, Prakriti, Purusa, and Purusa is individual conscious mind and cosmic mind. Next. So if you look at, since I took responsibility of IIT Mandi, we started an academic program on Indian knowledge system and mental health application. And as you know that as anybody who is a seeker of truth, he can see the problem of the society and tries to solve the problem. So one of the great problems that's befalling upon this particular civilization is called the mental disorder. And this is very, very important because we don't have a solution for mental disorder. For us, mental disorder means brain disorder. But that's not true. If we go to the Indian knowledge system, the mind is here. Just like something very solid, it is particulate in nature in the sense it has a specific position in space and time. But when the same thing becomes smaller and smaller, as Professor Murthy was talking, at the level of quanta, it is particulate in one sense, also dispersive in another sense. So, and this exact idea is there in Bhagavad Gita, although mind is particulated here, but it is dispersive throughout the body, right? Just like the cosmic mind is also particulate, according to Vedanta, in Svetadipa, whereas he's dispersive, he's experiencing, he's pervading entirety of the creation. So this very idea can be understood simply by perceiving the mind, body, and consciousness in a holistic pattern. So if we look at the entire body as in 7.4, 7.5, 7.6, 7.7 in Bhagavad Gita, so this whole body, the way we try to understand, we are trying to understand in terms of blood cells, in terms of cells, in terms of, various parameters. However, there is a better way to understand the body, mind, and consciousness when we start from the experience level. So our experience level is 5 things. That is sound, touch, form, taste, and smell. And these 5 things that we experience, they require 5 different spaces. So smell requires a space called earth. Earth is not the ordinary language earth. It is a space that carries smell. Similarly, water that carries the taste, or the fire that carries the form, and similarly ether carries the sound. That means this entire body is made up of 5 space. The gross experience that we talk about, the gross experience can be explained in terms of this 5 different kind of experiential space, which we can call as semantic space. And this space is different than the connotation of the space that we talk. It doesn't matter whether it is Cartesian space, Hilbert space, fiber bundle. There are so many conscious mathematical cases. They are not capable of coding the space that this body consists of. And hence, the cognition that I am cognitively aware of things, or the experience that I am experiencing, has not been explained within science as of now. I have the experience, how that experience does take place, we still don't know, because many of these facets of bodily composition that gives rise to a sense of cognition is not well understood. So if you look at, just to give you some perspective, when a person is going to die, he loses first the ability to smell. In fact, in COVID time, the doctor might have told you, are you able to smell or not, right? And we see that first you lose space called earth. That means that gets dissociated from you. And then there is water. That means taste. There are many old people at that last time said, we don't have taste. Don't give me anything. I can't. Taste is gone. And then vision is gone. Touch is gone. And finally hearing. You are entering into death. And if you look at the process of creation also, in the embryonic evolution, the first element, the first space that appears within the human body is sound or ether. And the smell or the earth comes the last. So this is science that needs to be understood. But the point here is, how do we study it? Because some point of time, the modern science discarded mind, thinking it is anti-physical. But within Vedanta, mind is also physical. But mind as a pure entity cannot be studied. But mind has expressed itself in this body. So this body is actually effect of the mind. So to study the mind, we must study the body-mind. And that is how at IIT Mandi we have started a program where we are trying to develop the real laws of psychology, which should supersede the laws of physics, chemistry, as well as biology. So that is, the consciousness or conscious mind should be kept higher in the pedestal, not at the lower. Next. So you see the common subject matter, Prabhupada says this in Easy Journey to Other Planets. Our quest for the subtlest form of cause is common in both Vedantic worldview and modern scientific view. So we must agree to an ontological form and causal structure at some point of time. Next. So now this is the question. All scientists are trying to understand what is the basic building block of this universe, right? Again, I'm telling the same thing, source matters. What is noumena? What is the source? Next. So when we studied, we were told these are the elements of periodic table. That is the truth. Hydrogen, helium, they are the fundamental building block of this universe. In a sense, when I say something source, when these are the source, so you are not talking about one source, but you are talking, now this periodic table is not a fixed, probably there are 120 members now. So if you think they are the ultimate source of everything that exists, then we have to understand what is meaning of basic building block. That means that from which everything comes, but that has no other source. So can we say hydrogen doesn't have a source? Hydrogen exists independently. Helium exists independently. So these are the questions that we need to ask. And you see that at some point of time, although we were teaching these are the fundamental, we realized they are not the fundamental source from which everything comes. Next. Sorry. So then we started talking about, electron and two quarks. That's when atomic theory started, and then we said, we could explain all elemental things like hydrogen, helium in terms of this atomic configuration. And then we started thinking, this is the fundamental thing from which everything comes. And then again, I don't want to go in details of the science, then this comes field. Next. Yeah, Michael Faraday, first he coined this term of electric field, magnetic field, electromagnetic field. And this is where, and ultimately we talked about quantum field and then the standard model. Go next. So basically, what we are talking about, the quest is proper, that what is the basic building block of the universe? What is the source? Right? But how do we really perceiving that question? The mindset behind that question is very important. So this will be explained in the next one. See, go next. So you see, in this process, what happened that when we started, now the current view is this quantum field is the basic building block of everything. But what does it say? That really did we solve the problem? So if you see that the origin is the inert energy, that is the quantum field, which gives rise to particles. And then such particles make up complex molecules that in turn makes the living organism. And ultimately, we decide that consciousness as an emerging phenomena. And this is where the Vedantists disagree. They don't agree with this. Next. Because if you see, everywhere, even when I came here before, I wanted to speak. What I'm going to speak is, I was thinking who are the audience, whom I should address. All this thought process gave me certain intuition. And after that, I used my computer and all gross things to put up the ideas. So the very origin of this, which is coming in the gross form, is actually my conscious thought. And we can see that. For example, you see there this beautiful plant of strawberry. What is the worth of a plant of a strawberry? 10 rupee? Right? But this 10 rupee plant gives you beautiful fruit, beautiful flowers. It is valueless. But within that has so much of mystic potency. You pluck one strawberry, it gives rise to another, yet another. And so also the flowers. That means within that plant, so much of mystic creative potency is there. And that is what is consciousness. And of course, people, some of the Sir J.C. Bose and others, they demonstrated that plants have consciousness, but still, consciousness as a fundamental reality of the existence has not been accepted within science. And science slowly, covering a lot of grounds, I'm going to tell you. No, next. Previous one. So if you see here, so whatever we see in this world, a mother, giving birth to a child, consciousness is there is a self-replication, right? Or I'm going to tell at the end about living soil. So if you look at, I'm an expert in so-called robotics and AI, and I was giving a talk in MIT on how to build a conscious machine. And I was trying to explain to them that how living organism and a machine, they're completely different. You see, A living organism, it experiences hunger, fear, sleep, sexual desire. They are not, you can't recreate that in machine. Self-replication, creativity. Creativity is there from microbes to human. Everybody has creativity. It's an amazing thing because consciousness is so powerful. That's the fundamental reality. And that's what Vedanta says, that we must search for it. Next. So what is this consciousness? Of course, the mystics, they dwell in pure consciousness. But we are also conscious. We mundane people are also conscious. And our consciousness must be understood before we can dwell in the consciousness in its pure state. So if you look at an experience at the level of senses and body, that is also consciousness. For example, hunger, thirst, sexual attraction, fatigue, these are all consciousness. We say polluted consciousness, sometimes perverse consciousness, sometimes material, mundane consciousness. An experience at the level of mind, desires, happiness, distress, success, failures. So, an experience at the level of intellect, Marxism, capitalism, Buddhism, Vedanta, they're also different level of consciousness. An experience at the level of false ego, Indian, American, Hindu, Muslim, Christian, male, female, white, black, in particularness, I have done it. So these are there. They are more fundamental. Trying to explain the consciousness in mere constant of mass, length, time will not solve. So we need to have a science agenda, how to study all these things in empirically, and I think there is a way we can study empirically. But now let me conclude here. When we say something is basic building block, that means that which must be eternal. It must be beyond space and time. That which has no origin. That which can exist independently. Janmadi yasyata taratas anvayat charthesu avijja surat. Surat. It has to be supremely independent. It can stay within itself. Atma Rama. And this must have all the properties that are seen within the perceptual space and beyond perceptual space. All other properties it must have. Next. And this is what Vedanta talks about, the cosmic mind that pervades. Sarvato pani padam akhi, sarvato siro mukha, sarvato srutimalloke, sarvam avritya tishtati. So, this is the purpose of creation. Purpose of creation is to recognize that cosmic mind and cooperate with that. And how do we cooperate with that? Next. So towards a holistic view, I will just, how much time I have, Gaurang, Prem Gaurang? 10 minutes? Oh, I have sufficient, so I don't have to worry. I skipped many things because of fear of time. Okay, so you see, I'll tell you a very nice story. You see, I take care of Bhaktivedanta Gurukul, an international school in Vrindavan. So I was given this responsibility in 2010. I found that our school is adjacent to the temple. It's just one building. I have to fight with the management, and I acquired 100 acres of land. I said that our school, Gurukul students, should have a very goodness atmosphere to grow. So when you took this land of 100 acres, we didn't realize the land is alkaline, salty. And because we have purchased, it's really, puncturing us in all direction because we called the district agriculture officer. He said, nothing can be done. Then we called the soil conservationist for the treatment of the soil. He came, he looked at it, he says, nothing will happen. And then, of course, we have management and there are other people, they will come, this is a disaster, we spoiled money, and And we were going through a lot of anxiety, stress. And that is the time I sent one of my colleagues to Subhas Palekar, who does natural farming. He took a training of 7 days and came back with simple idea of Jivamrita and Ghana Jivamrita. I'll just explain to you what it is. The cow dung has microbe, and these microbes are soil friendly. I will explain to you why it is soil friendly. And this microbe has to be cultured. In 72 hours, whatever the amount of the microbes are there in 1 kg of cow dung, with the addition of little urine is antiseptic, that in the sense the outside bacteria cannot enter into the medium where the urine is there. And then there is jaggery, this sugar, natural sugar, and chana powder. So this is besan, chana powder. So you have a formula with 200 liters of water. You ferment it, and these microbes, their numbers grows to almost like 10 to the power 14, 10 to the power 15. And in the land, you put some basic things like dried, maybe we can say Ghana Jivamrita, and other, like straws and other things, where we can sprinkle these microbes in the form of now liquid, and they start living in the soil. The moment they live in the soil, you suddenly, after some time, you will start seeing these earthworms manifesting. And after some time, you will see the birds are coming. And you see a beautiful ecosystem creating. And after 1 year from that land, we started growing rice, wheat, mustard, all kind of vegetables, sugarcane, literally everything we could grow. And bees, when I took the rice from that land to IIT Kanpur, my wife cooked. Many neighbors, they came and asked me, what are you doing? And they were shocked that this rice has so much of fragrance. And I did an experiment in my backyard, in my own residence with a PhD student, where we took 2 plots of land. In one land, I didn't sprinkle all these microbes. Other land, I kept as it is. We took those soil sample in our laboratory. We did an experiment. What is the content of the soil? Normally, within modern science, we say soil means this much calcium, this much nitrogen, blah, blah, blah. This is what their formula. And we took that soil sample, found out these are the compositions. And then we started sprinkling this, nurturing the soil with this microbe, and we left it without any treatment. And we planted these maize seeds. And we saw where we are sprinkling, the crop is this height, and here it is very small, right? And after some time, I told, look, take this soil and see what is the composition. Because here the crop is growing very higher rate, looking very healthy. It is looking very diseased. So this soil must be very healthy. This calcium component must have grown. Nitrogen component must have grown. And when we took to the lab, we found out no change. No change. This and this. The only thing that has happened here, the microbes per millicube meter of soil, the numbers are more. Here they are hardly present. And that is soil fertility. We realize soils are fertile if they are living. And they will give you very nice, nutritious food grains, vegetables, and everything. So that comes to me, the idea of holistic worldview. That is, these 8.4 million species are given to us. They create a complete ecosystem. Once I was in a conference, one fellow researcher, because when I discuss, I always bring these topics. Suddenly he attacked me while we were returning to the guest house. It is October month and there are lights, and lights are being surrounded by the insects. And he said, what is the utility of these insects? Attacking me. I said, what is your utility? And all of you know the recent papers in Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Control has already declared, if we don't change how we live, human species will become extinct. So there is a whole ecosystem. And that is being created by the cosmic mind for our benefit. The moment we try to fiddle it, we become endangered species, as it has been forecasted. So in a sense, whole and part, this is what also the Vedanta talks about. The part is there to cooperate the whole. And this is true to establish a stable family system, stable society, stable nation, stable globe, stable universe. So in that sense, because this is about cosmology, I personally believe that cosmology is such a gigantic cosmos that has also come with a purpose. It has a holistic purpose. Next. So if you look at the way these planets are described within the scripture, it's a relational. How they impact, how much is their contribution to the earthly life. For example, in SB 8.5.35, Soma, the moon, is a source of food grains, strength, longevity for all the demigods. He is also master of all vegetation, the source of generation of all living entities. As stated by learned scholars, the moon is the mind of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. May that Supreme Personality of Godhead, the source of all opulence, be pleased with us. You see that how the moon planet is presented to us. It's a relation to us. How it impacts. For example, in 15.12, Lord Krishna says, the splendor of the sun, which dissipates the darkness of this whole world, comes from me. The splendor of the moon and the splendor of fire are also from me. I enter into each planet, and by my energy, they stay in orbit. And now we talk about how the planets are floating. And that made a big, inquisitive mind within greatest of scientists. And that is how we started with universal law of gravitation. Then the Einstein came and said, no, the planets are floating because of space-time bending and so forth. But here, I enter into each planet, and by my energies, they stay in the orbit. Before any law we derive, the planets are already there. There is already a science by which the planets are there. And I become the moon and thereby supply the juice of life to all vegetables. Next. So the concluding remark, is the mind simply the brain in action? That's what many people are believing. As I told you, many people are becoming mentally depressed, clinically depressed. Except sedative, there is no cure for them. 8 months back, one fellow from Calgary, he's a PhD, he called me and said, "Sir, I am almost dead. Please help me." I said, "Will you follow me?" He said, "Yes." So I brought him to Vrindavan. He stayed in our Gausala, Gurukul. And we gave him a schedule. Getting up early morning, doing certain physical exercise, serving the cows. In 3 months, he lost 15 kgs of weight. He was not even able to lift a simple pot to feed the cow. But he could make 10 rounds of the campus. He became completely physically fit. The idea here is, if he would have gone to the hospital, they would have given him sedative. They would have literally killed him further. In Bhagavad Gita, 14th chapter, Krishna says, you increase the mode of goodness, mind will be healthy. So mind, as I told you, it is a very subtle form of energy sitting here. Although it is particulate in one sense, it is dispersive. It is manifesting, pervading my entire body. If my mind is sick, the body becomes sick. If body is healthy, mind cannot be healthy. But a healthy mind can make a sick body healthy. This is the Indian knowledge system. And this can be brought into the empiric science. And this is what, in fact, you know that Christoph Koch he was working with the Nobel laureate Crick. He was thinking also at some point of time, mind is an emerging phenomena of the brain. But now he has changed his stance. He believes now mind is a fundamental energy. More fundamental than the kind of energy that we have studied. And source matters towards the understanding the cosmic mind. Thus is the ultimate goal of life. Vedaisya sarvair ahameva vedya. This is what Krishna declares in Bhagavad Gita. The purpose of the sacred creation is to know the cosmic mind. So the holistic worldview, the relational outlook, what is happening within science, we are trying to understand everything ontologically. Whereas within Vedanta, it is said, is the relationship that can be understood. Nothing can be understood ontologically. Just to make you a point, one philosopher said, we describe the world because world is indescribable. In that context, atom with so many PhDs still not understood. The cell with so many PhDs has not been understood. In fact, in 2020, before pandemic, one Nobel laureate visited IIT Kanpur. He got the Nobel Prize by studying the cell using a very highly magnified electron microscope. You think in a cell, when we studied in our science +2, we used to have a microscope. And suddenly we saw this looking so big. It's amazing. But imagine your magnifying power increases and increases and increases. The same cell will be inexhaustible. You can never understand. Because the power of the magnifying power of the lens can go on increasing and increasing and increasing. And by that process, the cell becomes more inaccessible. And you realize it is still more inaccessible. So in a sense, the approach within modern science to understand things ontologically is actually wrong. We have to abandon that idea and have to understand a relational approach. What is a relational? That start connecting every item to its source, source to source, source to source, and try to understand what is the ultimate source. And that process not only will give us the knowledge that is satisfying, enlightening, also embracing the equanimity and peace within the universe. I will end this talk with a meeting I had with a very nice sadhaka. This sadhaka had invested 20 years of his time learning Hindustan classical music. I met him because I am doing certain research in classical music. And then after learning classical music for 20 years, I will not become a professor if I am not paid. And this person studied this 20 years of classical music for nothing. And then he shifted to Carnatic music. And he's further continued for 15 years. And that is when I met him. I said, sir, what motivates you to spend so much of your time? He says, I want to hear the master's voice. And that is the purpose. Purpose in 1.5.22, Narada is telling Vyasa, the purpose of everything, where Prabhupada says, whether it is physics, chemistry, biology, anything, is to finally understand the cosmic mind, the absolute truth. And that is the purpose, mystery behind the sacred creation. That is what I wanted to tell. Sacred universe has a sacred purpose. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Laxmidhar Behera ji. You have made a most comprehensive keynote presentation outlining the objective, the method, and the supportive cases and examples of this particular method. The objective, which you rightly pointed out, the sacred purpose of understanding the universe, why the universe was created, the guiding principle that universe is within our perceptual space of the self. You have reminded that there is a separate identity of us as the experience, as beyond the experience. You have rightly pointed out the examples of deeper understanding of consciousness where smell, taste, vision, touch, and sound go at the time of death and come at the time of birth in that particular sequence. Definitely, it's the thought that counts, and that consciousness is the fundamental building block of universe or nature. And the sacred purpose is to understand the cosmic mind, Vishwarupa, universe. Thank you so much for this comprehensive presentation.